Hello and thank you for joining us on Sideline Story, your destination for sports news, analysis and discussions. I'm Brandon Yates and today we will be chatting about the Bundesliga season. We'll take a look at the top performing players and teams, Bayern Munich season so far, as well as the surprising displays from Xabi Alonso's Bayern Leverkusen side. I'll dive headfirst into these discussion points with my two fantastic co-hosts, Yang Guang and Tian Yu. And Yang Guang, we're kind of in the early stages of the Bundesliga so far, but we've already seen some pretty outstanding performances, and not just from Bayern Munich players, but from players from all across the league. Any standouts from your side so far?
But unfortunately, I'm a Bayern Munich fan. So
Not unfortunately, I mean, they've been dominating the league for what, like the last decade?
So I will stick to
Bayern.
Bayern players.
Fair enough. We'll get to the other guys later.
Of course. Harry Kane.
Yeah.
I think that 100 million transfer totally is worth it. If Bayern bought him for 200 million, it's still worth it,
Yeah.
I would say.
If you think about how reliant they've been on him this season, I think it's 100 million euros is more than a fair deal.
Yeah, and how fast he can be adapted to the new team, the new manager, the new league. Because many said before that transfer was done, they said Harry Kane would not be so get used to the style of Bayern.
Yeah,
and,
like it would take time to adjust and settle in.
and the pace of the Bundesliga after getting out of the comfort zone in Tottenham. But
Considering how long he was there, I think he was there for more than 10 years. I think it was.
19 years.
19 years, yeah. I mean, he had a couple of loan spells, but he was a Tottenham registered player for, like you said, 19 years, which is crazy long.
Yeah, but for now, I would say every team is a comfort zone for Harry Kane.
I think when you reach a certain level, and the way you play isn't necessarily dictated by the team that you play for, because he's that type of player, and we've discussed this many times and we'll discuss it now. Yes, he scores goals, but he also creates chances for others. So it seems like whatever team he plays for, whether it's England, Tottenham or Bayern,
Spain.
yeah, whatever team he plays for, the team seems to, maybe knowingly or not knowingly revolve around him. And I don't think it's in an arrogant way. I don't think that he tries to get coaches or players to adapt to his style. I just think his style is so efficient that other teams kind of build around it,
It
right?
just goes naturally.
Yeah.
I mean, 22 goals and 7 assists in 18 games. You can't ask for more.
And he's broken records already, right? I think he's the fastest new player in the league to reach a certain amount of goals. I think he's already the top scoring English player in Bundesliga history. What a player.
And remember, he hasn't found his own house yet in Munich.
Been living in a hotel, I guess.
Yeah.
Maybe that's the secret. Just keep him in a hotel. Room service at 3 o'clock in the morning, whatever he wants.
But reports say he and his family will move into the new house before Christmas.
That
in
might
Munich.
help. Yeah, because maybe he'll settle down even more and start playing even better.
And there's still a language barrier. He's unable to speak German with his German teammates, a German coach, German managers. So he's picking up the language. He's taking lessons every week. But despite these obstacles, look at the stats, look at his influence on the pitch.
Yeah, it's incredible.
He's the playmaker plus the striker. Bayern has been looking for so many years. Number 9 and number 10 in one body.
Yeah, so technically you bought two players for 50 million each, it seems like. So that's a pretty good bargain.
Bargain deal,
Yeah, because I think that was the issue with Lewandowski, I think, for so long, is that, of course, he's one of the most lethal finishers that football's probably seen in the last decade. But that was kind of the only dimension that he brought. Dominant in the air as well, so he probably helped with some defensive duties as well. But in terms of link-up play and trying to create space for others, which then in turn would create space for him when he didn't have the ball, that was something Lewandowski lacked, whereas Harry Kane is really just, like you said, the complete combination of a number 9 and number 10. And like you've said already, something Bayern were lacking for a very long time. So your prayers have been answered.
Yeah, Harry Kane has made us forget about the Lewandowski's time with us.
Yeah.
But I think Harry Kane hasn't reached his 100% yet, partially because of Thomas Tuchel. I'm not really a big fan of Tuchel's style. He emphasizes on defense and counter-attacks transition too much.
Right. So it's quite counter football in the sense that you're looking to feed off mistakes as opposed to kind of creating chances for your own team.
Yeah.
It's kind of, I wouldn't say it's negative, but it's kind of cynical way of playing, I would say, because you're kind of defending, and waiting for your chance to go and attack, whereas you would expect Bayern to be, a team that's playing full of confidence and would be confident on the ball. And I guess that is Tuchel's style, to kind of be more defense-minded. But then again, could it potentially be down to the players that he has, or do you think it's the style that he just will implement on any team he manages?
I mean, if without Harry Kane, of course, Leroy Sané, a lot of wingmen can be totally adapted to this style. But now we have Harry Kane. We can
Try
build
more
up
choices.
build up around him.
Or play with more confidence.
Yeah.
Because there's more opportunities to create chances as opposed to just using the speed that you have on the wings to kind of feed off another team's mistake or just rely on counterattacks. When you've got a player like Kane, you can build up from pretty much anywhere.
That's why I would say the best Harry Kane is yet to come with Bayern. I would say Harry Kane plus Xabi Alonso. That would be an interesting combination
No,
for Bayern.
is gonna come to Real Madrid.
He's putting it out there, maybe. But I mean, there have been rumors. Look, I mean, we'll get into Bayern Leverkusen shortly, but there definitely have been talks of Xabi Alonso being destined for greater things. There's been talks about Real Madrid. There's been talks about Bayern Munich. And there's a lot of Leverkusen players that have also been linked with Bayern naturally. So I think the next year also could be very interesting for Bayern and for Kane in particular. But when we look at Tuchel and Harry Kane and the style that Bayern are currently playing, now that we're seeing the amazing effect that Kane has had on Bayern, do you think that Tuchel will eventually change his tactics to suit a more dominant possession style of play?
Oh, it's too difficult to change a manager's style. You can't.
Particularly when he has such a reputation already.
Yeah. You can't force Pep Guardiola to play defensive football. So I guess it's the same logic. Tuchel, I think
he has his own logic.
Yeah.
His own style that he's probably not willing to change naturally. So we've touched on Bayern Munich, and there's a couple of other players we can mention there. Leroy Sané, there's been quite a few players that have been having quite a good season so far at Bayern. Tianyu, from your side, any other standout Bundesliga players that we can talk about right now?
Yeah, I'm gonna still stick
with Bayern. Yeah. No, let's do it. I'll get into Leverkusen when we're done here.
First of all, Harry Kane, Young One just covered all my points. It's such a bargain deal. I just envy him as a Real Madrid fan.
No, he's an amazing player.
100 million euros, such a bargain deal. Not a high price for such an excellent player like him. Yeah, and but also in Bayern, I think. Leroy Sané has been quite a surprise for me. After Kane came to the team, he just started to have some chemical reactions between him and Kane. And we know he runs pretty fast and he can dribble really well. But ever since Lewandowski left the team, it seems like Sané suddenly turned into a lone wolf in the game. He could still make some amazing breakthroughs in the front line, and
he's probably taken on more responsibilities. I mean, look, I'm sure those responsibilities have been reduced by Kane's arrival, but I still think that he sees himself as a leader in the team and someone that is relied on beyond the likes of Harry Kane.
But sometimes he just didn't know how to cooperate with his teammates.
Yeah, he needs the right players to work with him. And Harry Kane, I think, he opens more space for Leroy Sané.
And the likes of Kingsley Coman and these very exciting wingers that when they're given space, they can do some incredible things, but they kind of struggle to create space on their own. And when you've got someone like Harry Kane, who is a defender's nightmare because you're not really sure if he's going to take a shot or if he's going to create space for someone else, that's a winger's dream, because you know that the defender's eyes will not be on you and space at some point will be created, not just because of all the attention that's on Harry Kane, but even if all of the attention is on him, he still has that class to create space for others, even if there are 2 or 3 defenders marking him.
And find them.
Exactly.
Yeah, and
he's a real linchpin, like literally everything naturally revolves around him.
Yeah, and turning to Sané, we know he had a poor relationship with Mane, and I think
to say the least,
it went very bad in the end. But now it's different. It's just like the arrival of Harry Kane seemed to have spurred him to become a better player. It's still in the first half of the season, like 1/3 of the season. Like,
Yeah. Oh.
and he already got 8 goals and 6 assists. And
I wonder if Harry Kane had that in mind when he arrived at Bayern, when he probably identified 1 or 2 players that he knew would be critical to the team's success and his own success, because of course he can do certain things on his own, but he can't win games single-handedly.
Yeah.
And also, I'm sure he wants some assistance, particularly going forward. And he probably identified someone like Sane and probably took him under his wing. And
someone who can make breakthroughs and
exactly.
dribble.
And they've both got experience in the Premier League. And the Sane-Mane thing is interesting. I mean, besides the similarity in their names, they also have similarities in their positioning. So you probably find instinctively they were very competitive with each other, and that probably had an effect on their relationship, which, like you said, ended terribly. Whereas Kane, someone that's really confident and came with a huge price tag and knows he's going to be the main man, you probably found that he came into the squad with quite a lot of modesty. And that's probably something that Sane reacted to quite well. And also they probably didn't see competition amongst each other, because they're both star players, but in relatively different positions. And they probably also knew that Bayern's success would not rely on just either one of them. It would rely on both of them. And also, one would not keep the other out of the team. So that's probably been a big factor in why they are playing together so well, because you probably find that their relationship in the training ground, in the change room, is probably pretty good. Whereas with Sane and Mane, it was reportedly appalling.
Yeah. You just brought up a very interesting element. Like when the team managers are picking up players in the transfer window, they need to maybe consider the characters, some other factors aside from the ability, right? Like their personality, how they're, if they will fit into the team well, and they need to consider these factors.
And you never really know. And I think it's, when you sign a player, you can't really determine how they're going to get along with certain players. You don't really know what their attitude is going to be like once they have signed and are on that training pitch. You have to kind of hope for the best. But I also think as analysts, we don't know what goes on behind the scenes. We just think, oh, he's a great player. He's going to fit into this team completely, perfectly. We don't take into account their personality, language barriers, being away from home, competitiveness for positions, not getting along with the manager, not getting along with the coach. There's so much that happens off the field that probably affects what happens on the field. And it seems like there are things happening off the field at Bayern that are benefiting key players. So I think those are the Bayern players that have been standouts so far. And when I think about Leverkusen, which is a team we'll talk about now, I think of the likes of Granit Xhaka, Xavi, Wirtz, Grimaldo, Frimpong. They've got a lot of exciting young players that are coming through and a very exciting young manager. So it seems like Leverkusen are a side that had a lot of potential, but they seem to be reaching that potential sooner than a lot of people expected. So let's talk about some of the best performing teams, and I guess we should start with Leverkusen, right, Yang Guang?
Yeah, of course. Leverkusen is one of the only 2 teams in major European leagues that haven't been defeated yet so far this season. The other team, by the way, is Bayern Munich.
Of course.
But everyone takes Bayern's unbeaten run for granted. It's the level they should keep. But Bayer Leverkusen, it seems like they came from nowhere. All of a sudden became the most talked about team in Europe. We can talk about this team more later, but Hoffenheim also made some progress this season.
Because they've struggled for the last couple of seasons, right? They've been in the relegation zone in a couple of seasons, but this season they seem to be improving at least.
Yeah, last season they only won 10 games, and at one stage was in real danger of falling into the relegation zone.
Yeah.
And this season they have amassed 6 victories already.
Wow. And it's still, like we've said, it's still quite early days.
Yeah.
So that's pretty impressive considering where they were last season.
And the additions they acquired this past the transfer window really helped the team upgrade this squad, including Dutch big man
Verhulst.
Yeah.
The Man United star. Shame, I give him a lot of slack. I'm not a big fan of his, but I've never thought of him as being a particularly talented player. But I must say I did really respect him as a United player because he seemed to really want to play for the team. And often you get these players that aren't particularly talented, but they work incredibly hard for the team, and he's one of those players. And I guess he's doing the same at Hoffenheim, but he probably has less expectation playing in that team and probably has more room to express himself and score more goals, whereas at United he was kind of seen as like a stopgap option. But at Hoffenheim he seems to be thriving, right?
Yeah, he has scored 3 goals so far this season.
I think that's already more than his United record.
So I think Hoffenheim has the potential to reach the European competitions next season. Yeah.
What an improvement from last season.
That's a high remark.
Yeah.
Very good remark.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's still early days, so anything could happen, but I think they definitely are a team on the rise for sure. From your side, Tianyu, any teams that we haven't mentioned yet?
Well, yeah, I've also been really impressed by what the 2 traditionally weak teams, Leverkusen and Stuttgart, have been doing this season. Last season, Leverkusen ended up with 50 points at the sixth place on the team.
But that was still a huge improvement from where they were prior to Xabi Alonso joining, right?
Yeah, and I'm sure they will definitely do better than last season because they've already had 35 points in 13 games. So yeah, they look very promising right now. And also Stuttgart is even more surprising. It's hard to imagine that last season they were still fighting for a chance to stay in Bundesliga. And I think the 2 teams' success can so far this season owes a lot to their managers, head coaches. Xabi Alonso and Sebastian Hoeneß are both coaches who are pretty good at playing counter-offensives and know their players pretty well. And particularly Hoeneß, I think he's doing a great job by lifting a team from relegation to from building a weak team into one which plays in a very organized way, especially considering the fact that they just lost their key player, Wataru Endo. And a lot of the opportunities of Stuttgart come from Seru Girassi, it's hard to pronounce his name, who has already scored 16 goals.
Whoa.
And I'm sorry, Brandon, but he has equaled Manchester United's goal tally so far this year.
Yeah, and considering the amount of money that we've spent on players, wow.
And yeah, many would say that he may just be a flash in the pan, but I think his performance has proved that he's a very all-around player, actually. He has a very good scoring ability, helped by his accurate shooting. And just like Harry Kane, he can act like
that's a bold comparison.
Yeah, like a pivoting in the front and create chances for his teammates. I think his playing style is pretty smart because he has an incredible ability to read the games. And
but it seems like Stuttgart have also done something that Bayer Leverkusen did, which was build from losing a star player. So I think Leverkusen lost Moussa Diaby, I believe it was, to Aston Villa for quite a big fee, and they brought in a couple of players to replace him, and that's seemingly galvanized the team and has seen them achieve this incredible success so far this season. But we'll get into Leverkusen shortly because I think there's a lot of talking points we need to focus on because their ascension has been pretty remarkable. I don't think we've seen anything like this in any other of the European leagues. Definitely not this season, but not for the last 3-4 years, I would say. But when we look at Bayern, you can't talk about the Bundesliga without talking about Bayern. And like you said, Yang Guang, there's so much expectation around them that even though they're still undefeated this season, people seem to be ignoring them and still seem to think that there's issues at Bayern. Would you say that there are issues at Bayern? Are there things that they can work on? Or do we just expect too much of Bayern? Or is the competition for Bayern just getting better? How can we be talking negatively about a team that is unbeaten? Like, it just seems crazy to me.
Yeah, it's really a strange phenomenon. Just because Bayern dominated Bundesliga for so long, and people have to, pick out the flaws out of this team.
They have to try really hard to find them.
Yeah.
I guess the only flaw that most people have picked up on for the last couple of years has been their European performances. But even so far this season, it's been pretty good up until this point.
Yeah. Talking about this team, I would be totally biased.
Of course, naturally.
I would try to be objective as objective as possible, but I still I think Bayern should not worry about Leverkusen's challenge too much. It's the whole season is a marathon race, and it's just the first 10 kilometers. And I think if Leverkusen can keep this level for 34 games, then cool. So be it.
Do you think they can do it?
No.
Yeah, maybe they don't have as much experience and depth as the Bayern squad.
The depth of the bench.
Because it seems like they're starting 11, and Xabi Alonso's tactics seems to be working really well for them. But if there's one or two injuries to key players, I don't think Leverkusen could handle it as well as Bayern could potentially handle it. But we have to talk about Leverkusen now. Tianyu, when you look at that side, what are they getting right? What has seen their success at this point?
Well, I think they have really a versatile playing style because when Alonso wants the team to play beautiful, they can handle the ball under their feet all the time. And when they want them to be efficient, their passes can be direct and very accurate in counter-offensives. And when they want to have like the balanced a power in attacks and defenses, they can keep their formation very tight and balanced. So it's just how I think it's really amazing for Alonso to teach these players to play in such an organized way and coordinated way.
They seem to be very, considering the youth of the squad, they seem to be very disciplined, mature, and they seem to play a very distinctive style. But then again, they also seem to have the ability to create chances out of nowhere. And the fact that they are such a young, relatively inexperienced squad, but look, they've got experience in key positions, like I've said, Granit Xhaka in midfield, and they've got one or two others. They seem to be very comfortable in possession, and they seem to like passing the ball around and creating spaces for each other. I think that's what they seem to do relatively well, actually incredibly well. And without the ball, they're also very hard working on the counter press, and that's where they create chances on the counter attack. Would you agree, Yang Guang, in terms of their playing style? Do you think that's got a lot to do with their success that we're seeing right now?
I think Alonso is having this honeymoon period with Leverkusen.
The first 10 kilometers of the marathon, things are going great right now.
I think Alonso has been really successful in terms of creating a good atmosphere inside the locker room and modifying their formations on the pitch. One thing I really like him is that he gives the players the rights to make calls on what to do next on the pitch, especially their number 10.
So he really trusts his players, even though a lot of them are young and inexperienced. They are immensely talented. But I think because he's a young and inexperienced manager to a certain degree, he probably wants his players to have that same level of confidence that he has in his own abilities. Yeah,
it's quite different from what Pep Guardiola does with his teams, which is designing every running path.
Every details.
Planning every pass on the pitch.
Literally. And also holding back a lot of young, talented players as well. And then some of them eventually leave, like Cole Palmer.
Yeah, he's obsessed with those little details.
Yeah.
There's nothing right or wrong. It's just different coaching manners. But if I'm a professional player, I would rather play with Alonso's team.
Yeah, because you like the fact that there is a certain style and that discipline is required, but you also, as a player, probably like the fact that the manager trusts you to use your abilities to create space or do something that isn't necessarily pre-planned.
Yeah, and talking about Leverkusen's success this season, I think they still largely play possession games, and they try to push their opponents to their own half.
Which is amazing considering how young the squad is, because they're playing like a team that has, been together for 10, 15 years, but they were kind of put together relatively quickly. First of all, the squad was put together quite recently, and it's a very young squad.
And they are very efficient in scoring goals. They always initiate the attacks from the 1/3 from the pitch. And I think the success of this playing style partially comes from Wirtz, Yeah, the German young player. I think
Linked with Bayern.
Yeah.
So we'll see how long he stays at Leverkusen. And I think that's also something that Leverkusen could battle with in the coming seasons, is that, they've got these young, talented players. Holding on to them is going to be very challenging, including the manager.
Yeah. Wirtz is a great player between the strikers and midfielders.
His creativity is incredible.
Yeah, he connects the two lines really well with his creative passes and his own dribbles.
Yeah. Now imagine him behind Harry Kane. Imagine this. Imagine the things he could do with that squad. I'm not trying to suggest anything, Leverkusen fans, but wow, that would be an amazing signing.
Yeah, but he's the reason why Leverkusen has the most number of passes from 1/3 of the pitch in Bundesliga this season. And another key player, as you said, Xhaka. I think he plays the role Xabi Alonso used to play with Liverpool, with Real Madrid. With
Like a
Bayern
midfield
Munich.
commander.
Yeah, between the two central defenders.
And considering the type of player he is, it's amazing the discipline that he's managed to maintain this season, because we've seen in the past, particularly with Arsenal, he's quite a volatile character.
Yeah.
But he seems to have dialed that back a little bit with Leverkusen.
I think he's quite used to the pace of the Bundesliga football. He used to play for Mönchengladbach.
Yeah, that's where he made a name for himself.
Yeah. So this is not complete new start for him. But one thing I really like him is his how he controls the pace, and he can also meantime protect the central defenders really well when the ball is lost in the midfield.
Like, he's a defensive midfielder that also has the ability to transition into attack. He's quite a solid box-to-box player for Leverkusen, I would say. And then again, like we said, they've got these super talented young players, but key players in key positions that have experience. Another one that I think of is Jonathan Tah in central defense, where he seems to kind of call the shots in the defensive line, where all of the attacking players, like you've got Grimaldo and Frimpong going up, Tah kind of sits back and, keeps things tight at the back. And he also has the ability to build up from the back as well. I think he's one of the most efficient passers in the Bundesliga as well. So it seems like Leverkusen have got a great balance in their starting 11. And things are, like you said, things are going really well. It's the honeymoon phase. But it could be quite challenging for them to maintain that. Tianyu, if there were an injury or two to someone like Tah or Granit Xhaka or Wirtz, do you think that Leverkusen could keep pace with Bayern Munich?
I guess it would be lethal to such a young team like Leverkusen. Just look at the last season's Arsenal. They've been leading the table for the majority of the time, and then just
a massive stumble.
A few injuries just cost them the title.
Not even injuries sometimes. I think sometimes their momentum, they just can't keep it up anymore. They just kind of fall off, and they can't deal with the pressure as well as other teams like Bayern and City can.
Yeah, the physical power, they just can't sustain it throughout the whole campaign.
Yeah, but I think as the Bundesliga season progresses, I think we will definitely be keeping our eyes on that race between Bayern Munich and Leverkusen, and I'm definitely looking forward to when they eventually do play each other. I think that's going to be great to watch as well. But as the season goes on, that battle between Bayern and Leverkusen should be very, very interesting to watch indeed. And Yang Guang, will see if they can maintain their pace in that marathon run. Leverkusen, of course, because Bayern have been there and done it for so long. So it's going to be very interesting to watch. And also, I think in the next couple of months and year or so, we'll have to see what kind of levels of success Leverkusen can achieve, and if they can also hang on to the likes of Xabi Alonso, Wirtz, and a couple of other players we've mentioned. So the Bundesliga should be very interesting to watch for the next couple of months for a variety of reasons. But that's all we have time for on this week's episode of Sideline Story. Thank you so much for joining us, and of course we will be back next time with our latest topic, and we'll see you then.
This is CGTN Radio. Hear the difference.